On an earlier podcast, you heard us mention Sir Francis Bacon.
Oh, I loved him in Footloose.
No, that's Kevin Bacon.
Oh.
We're talking about the English philosopher born in the 1500s who famously once said,
"Knowledge is power."
I like that, because knowledge is what we're all about here. Of course, we're not seeking the kind of knowledge that Sir Francis Bacon pursued. No, we're more concerned with things like, if nothing sticks to Teflon, how does Teflon stick to the pan? If your remote control battery is dying, why do we think pressing the buttons harder will actually make it work? Or what was the greatest thing before sliced bread? So if those are the kind of things you've always wondered about, you've come to the right place. And I'm pretty sure Sir Francis Bacon would approve.
What about Kevin?
Yeah, hopefully he does too.
Oh, I knew he would.
Welcome to the podcast.
It's the Always Wondered podcast.
Hi, I'm Rick Peterson. Thanks for joining us. You know, podcasters like to number their episodes and keep track. And as it turns out, this is our 13th episode. So it seems like a great time to talk about the number 13. Have you always wondered, where did all the hate for 13 come from? It's like the math equivalent of walking under a ladder while breaking a mirror and crossing paths with a black cat. For the answer, we head back to the ancient world, where 12 was the golden child. You had 12 months in a year, 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 Olympian gods, 12 eggs in a basket. Nature, religion, and breakfast all agree. 12 is a well-balanced, symmetrical superstar. But what comes after perfection? Chaos. 13 shows up like your weird cousin at Thanksgiving who brings a taxidermy squirrel for the centerpiece. Yeah, that would be my reaction too. So that leads us to Norse mythology. Legend has it that the gods were having a nice dinner at Valhalla. 12 guests, great conversation, probably lots of mead. And in walks Loki, the agent of mischief, the 13th guest. And by the time it's done, a beloved god winds up dead. Worst dinner party ever.
They should have used Evite.
Then Christianity weighed in. The Last Supper, 13 guests, dinner served with a side dish of betrayal. Different divinity, same result. And when we flash forward to today, people still won't sit down to dinner with a party of 13. Even buildings are afraid. Elevators jump from 12 to 14. It's like the floor exists, but nobody talks about it.
Kind of like Elevator Fight Club.
Yeah, triskaidekaphobia, the fear of the number 13. It even has its own name, and probably its own support group.
Yeah, we meet in room 14.
But here's the twist. Not everyone thinks 13 is unlucky. In Italy, 13 is a lucky number. In ancient Egypt, the 13th stage of life is the peaceful afterlife. So maybe 13 isn't cursed after all. Maybe it's just misunderstood.
Sort of like a numerical goth teenager?
Exactly. In the meantime, just sit back, relax, and know that there's nothing to worry about. But maybe avoid sitting in the 13th row, just to be sure.
The Always Wondered podcast.
I learned to type on a manual typewriter. Typing class was mandatory back when I was in the 8th grade. And I'm sure those old classroom typewriters are now sitting in a landfill somewhere, along with my hopes and dreams of ever becoming an accomplished typist. To add insult to injury, every week we were tested on how many words we could type correctly, and then the results were posted on the classroom wall. That way the entire 8th grade could now share in my humiliation. But I did make a good friend that year. It was called Whiteout. But whether you learned to type on a manual, or later on a computer keyboard, or later still on a virtual keyboard, that first time staring at that confusing configuration of keys was enough to make you say, "What the fudge?" Well, you're not alone. The QWERTY keyboard has baffled many. QWERTY, named for the first sequence of letters in that top row, QWERTY. So, if you've always wondered how the QWERTY keyboard came to be, let's set your margins, place your fingers on the home keys, start typing, and we'll see if we can't come up with the answer. We set the Wayback Machine for the 1860s. A time before autocorrect, before texting thumbs, before email signatures with inspiring quotes. A guy by the name of Christopher Sholes patented an early typewriter. His keyboard was laid out something like a piano, with the keys in alphabetical order.
Seems quite logical.
Yeah, so what happened? Turns out that manual typewriters had a tendency to jam when keys were pressed too rapidly. So the keys were rearranged in the QWERTY style to slow things down and make it more difficult to type. Wait, let me say that again. They purposely made it more difficult.
You gotta be kidding me.
Had I known this back in the 8th grade, it would have done wonders for my self-esteem. By the 1870s, Sholes had entered a manufacturing agreement with the Remington Company. Yep, makers of the Remington rifle. They were experts at producing precision machinery, and that's when things took off. QWERTY wasn't the best, but it was the first. So other typewriter manufacturers followed suit and adopted the QWERTY keyboard as the industry standard.
See the exciting new Remington office writer at your dealers. Available after a small down payment for only $1.50 a week.
Then when the computer keyboard came along, there was no longer a fear of mechanical jamming of the keys, but by that time, millions of people had already learned the QWERTY system, so why change it? So the next time you misspell a word, fat finger an email, or wonder why your pinky controls the Q, blame the 19th century. But like it or not, QWERTY is still king. And I'm still trying to live down my 8th grade indignity. That's in-dig-na-ty! Exclamation point.
It's the Always Wondered podcast.
As we do this podcast, we often come across questions that can be answered fairly easily without a lot of explanation. So we thought maybe we could bunch together several of those questions that you've always wondered about into a new little feature. We call it
The Always Wondered Lightning Round.
Hey, it has its own intro, so you know it's got to be good, right? So, quick questions, quick answers.
The clock has started.
Oh, I didn't know we'd be timed on this.
Yes.
At least there's no dramatic music to freak me out. Yeah, should have known. Let's go. Question. Have you always wondered why there are dimples on a golf ball? Answer. Aerodynamics. The dimples allow air to vibrate around the ball, letting the ball travel further. Have you always wondered why there are 7 holes in Ritz crackers? The holes allow steam to escape while baking, preventing air pockets and giving the crackers a consistent texture. Have you always wondered why there's usually a ball at the top of a flagpole? Well, it's called a finial, and it serves 2 purposes. It keeps water from entering the flagpole if it rains, and if it's super windy and the flag is flapping all over the place, the round shape means the flag won't get caught on a sharp edge and won't rip.
Time is running out.
Got it. Time for one more. When it comes to lumber, have you always wondered why 2x4s are actually smaller than 2x4 inches? When the lumber is rough cut, they are about 2x4. But after the drying process and then a final finish cut to smooth out the roughness, they typically turn out to be about 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches.
Time is up.
All right, I think we did okay. And it goes without saying that if you have suggestions for other questions that you've always wondered about, feel free to let us know. We would love to include them in future podcasts.
The Always Wondered podcast.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Hopefully you gleaned a little knowledge. And as always, we leave you with one to ponder. Have you always wondered, why do those tiny paper cuts hurt so much? Sorry, I feel your pain. And I promise we'll explore that one on a future podcast. Until then, stay curious, keep wondering. I'm Rick Peterson. Thanks for listening.
The Always Wondered podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and a review. Listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. Feel free to offer suggestions for future topics or simply reach out to alwayswonderedpodcast@gmail.com.